Good morning, it's Devin again from Whiskey, Wine, and Wood. We're here back in the shop at bright and early 5 o'clock in the morning, bringing you our third video in our series on the journey of a barrel lid. Today we're going to review QC and double check the barrel lids that we've been preparing, walk you through kind of what our next steps are, and show you actually a unit that has been rejected for QC. So let's get at it.
So on our last video we went through, showed you guys, we glued up all of our lids. These have actually gone through and we've actually prepared these. So all of the holes have been cut out for the pool cue. And we've cut out our notch here. For this one's actually going to be one for that has our bridge holder on it. So all of these have been done. The edges have all been beveled. And then I double check all to make sure all of the inside, that there's no rough edges, nothing like that. There's a little rough edge right there. I'll take care of that with a file. I've run a Dremel through these, so these are all nice and smooth inside. But occasionally I always double check again to make sure I didn't catch anything. The bottom has also been all done. This is a really good example of, even though this has been sanded and cleaned multiple times, you still have a lot of that staining that comes through from the wood, and there's a little bit of a snap still left on this one. And then all of the char has been removed from both the bottom and the top here. You still get some of the char wood because we want to keep that look from it, but all of that rough char has been removed down. And we double check, make sure all of the seams are good and glued, that it's good and flat, that there's no major bowing in this. This top piece is really good. All the joints and stuff are really tight. The bottom piece, again, looks like all the joints are really tight. We've done our drop check to make sure everything is fine. We checked just the edges to make sure that there's no major gaps. There's a little bit of a gap here on this one. That's, again, it's just cosmetic. That's not structurally going to hurt this at all because, we're mostly focused on strengthening the center. But what I will do is take a little bit of wood filler, kind of fill that in. It's one of the reasons I actually prefer some of this Elmer's wood filler, because it's got a nice tight skinnier bead that I can get into this groove a little bit better. Makes it a little bit easier. So this one's good to go. We've got our hooks already made for the pool cue ball racks. These are all good and clean, and then we have our two stave pieces. So if you look at our stave pieces for these as well, you can still see that they bow this way. They've got the angles on the outside a little bit. It also bows in this direction, so it's always fun working with these. And it's hard to tell and it's hard to see on the videos, but if you look here, you can see this one has more of an angle on it. This one's side is a little bit more straight. That's because we actually cut a straighter edge on one side. That way when we place this on here, we'll have a better more straight and more perpendicular to the unit. Same thing with we did with this bottom piece. So before we move on to showing the assembly, I'll show you an example of one that actually did fail. So this is one of those Four Roses that I was really excited about. Bottom looks really good. Everything looks good on this guy, on the bottom piece, but the top piece, we ran into a little bit of an issue. So you cannot see it here, but I'll show you in a second what it looks like. There is a very strong bow on this piece here. So it doesn't look much on the video, but once I actually hold these two together, you can see there is a large bowing on this one. This piece is pretty much flat. This one's bowing up significantly. I saw this when I first put it together. I thought that maybe, because sometimes it does happen, that once I clean it and it gets into some water and things like that, it would actually, the bow sometimes diminishes out. This one it didn't. It actually just stayed the same. So this one's rejected. This is going to go to the fire pit later on, or it will go into the fireplaces winter if I need it. So that one will never leave the shop. So when we're piecing these together, and again, I'm not going to show all the gluing steps and things like that, we will take these, we double check all of the pieces that we have together. We'll glue these at the same distance from each end of the stave. We actually will then measure from either end of this piece and make sure that this is centered as well. Again, this flatter piece goes here. because if you can kind of see it here, it'll be a lot flatter against the wall. If you do it the other way, it bows back just a little bit more, so we try to keep them as flat as possible. I prefer to use wood Gorilla Glue. Every woodworker is going to have their own kind of choice about glue, but I use Gorilla Glue, and the biggest thing is because it has a lot more like almost instant grip, which makes it a little bit easier to work with these items when I'm trying to clamp them together, and gives me a little bit more time, so I don't have to be as quick with the clamps as some of the others. So I'm mostly going to show you what happens after these guys have been glued up and dried. So these guys have been going overnight. I'm going to show you there are a lot of clamps, obviously, if you can see, involved with all of these. So when we clamp these up, we have clamps on the stave pieces. We'll have at least one or two clamps on the outside, and then a lot of times we'll put a clamp on the inside too. So again, we want to make sure that we have a really good solid glue right there across that entire bottom stave. So we'll take all of these clamps off, and they will fall everywhere. Set them here behind me. So after these are done, we do another QC check before I'm going to send these off to finishing. So one is make sure everything is good and tight. Make sure that that glue is not coming loose anywhere. Double check again to make sure there's any gaps. If there are any gaps, I'll mark them with a pencil just to remind me as I get ready to finish these. Make sure everything is good, everything is smooth. Double check for any glue spots. If there are, I need to get those sanded off and cleaned as well. This bottom piece is good to go. So that's one of the QC. Then what we'll actually do, and I'm not going to wander over here, is I'll actually set this against a wall and make sure it's lying flat. If it's not lying mostly flat, because again, there's going to be some give. This is a reclaimed material, so there's always going to be some, a little bit of play, I guess you can call it, in how flat these things actually are, how level they're ever going to be. But we want to make sure they're going to be mostly flat and mostly level. So I'll put it against the wall, double check it. If not, then I will break these bonds, fix it, and re-go at it. And anything that's horrible, like, we would stop. Sometimes when we do put these together, there will be a little bit of a bow, either convex or concave. We'll actually have to cut the stave connection to fit that piece so that it actually still lies flat. And a lot of times it's just grinding a little bit off on either side here. And while we're at it, we will double check this top piece as well. Or sorry, that's a bottom piece. Up here's the top for that one. So again, you can see lots of clamps. So I took those off over there because it's a little bit harder to get those out. So these, again, this is the top piece for this one. Again, it's got that nice notch to it. We've got this piece in, double check it. QC is good. This one is, it's got the notch here. Again, you can see here there's a little bit of gap here and here. We'll fill that in with some wood filler. Again, it's just completely cosmetic. And speaking of Four Roses, this is actually one of the other Four Roses lids. So you can see that this one went through a good bit of sanding, but it's got some nice darker areas and patches on it. Again, we tried to preserve as much of the color and character of the units as possible. And so these are good to go. So thank you guys for watching this video. And then part 4 will be out and once we get ready to start finishing these guys. Thank you.